The Falcons got some great news today, and I want to share that with you all on this episode. But quick reminder to click that sub button down below. Join us for the NFL Draft. We'll go live an hour before it begins on Thursday, and then again for day 2 on Friday. Giveaways, pick-by-pick analysis, and everything is completely free. So do future you a favor right now. Scroll on down, click that sub button. If I had to rank things I would be talking about today, Kirk Cousins showing up to the Falcons facility for some voluntary offseason workouts would be at the bottom. I would say it was more likely getting up this morning that I would talk about whether or not there was a second shooter on the grassy knoll in 1963 than Cousins coming to the Falcons facility. Now, Atlanta has been in some trade conversations with Kirk. I mean, during the NFL owners meeting, they said they're going to do what's best for themselves and for Cousins. Adam Schefter recently said that the Falcons privately are working on a trade. They want to get rid of some of that money, and you can see there's a lot of guaranteed cash owed to Cousins this year. He's got a $27.5 million base salary, $10 million roster bonus kicked in way back in March. So I think the Falcons are trying to work on a trade where they can take that $37.5 million and split it over themselves and another team. And they're probably having a tough time finding a team that wants to take on part of that contract. But the reason why I think this is great news for Atlanta is the Falcons now use this, right? They use Cousins showing up to the facilities, coming to voluntary practices as further evidence that they are content with keeping Kirk on their roster. So if you want Cousins, for any desperate team out there that needs a quarterback because they didn't get one in the NFL draft this weekend, well, the Falcons go, listen, we like Kirk. Kirk likes us. He's here. He doesn't even have to be here. That's how much he wants to be here. But fine, if you really need him, we'll give it to you for like a third-round draft pick, right? This helps Atlanta in leveraging. Whereas if Cousins was not at these types of things, the other team on the other side of the phone would go, Kirk doesn't want to be there. You know that. We know it. Kirk knows it. So all in all, I kind of look at this optimistically. Now, I don't know what he was doing at Flowery Branch. I don't know if he was there for like a free snack, right? Maybe he's like, hey, I'll go get a protein shake and then hit up Zaxby's on the way home. I don't know if he just want to get a quick lift in or if he truly is there because it's his job and they have practices and he views them as mandatory. And he's deciding, you know what? I'm going to be a good soldier. I'm not going to pout. I'm on this team. I have a contract. I'm going to fulfill it. If that's the case, I mean, color me shocked. I would love for that to be the outcome, but I don't think that's really realistic. And I don't think the Falcons want Kirk to be there if he's not all the way in. And everything Kirk has done so far has indicated he doesn't want to be there. He went on Radio Row in New Orleans leading up to the Super Bowl and disclosed, hey, I played through a shoulder and elbow injury. Huh? We didn't know that. Raheem Morris never said you had an injury. One time you popped up on the injury report, and it wasn't even an official injury report because there was no practice. It was just an expected injury report if they had practice. And the very next day when they did practice, he was fully cleared. So he decided to either make Raheem Morris look dumb, incompetent, by not knowing his quarterback was injured, or he wanted to do himself a favor and let other teams know, I didn't really suck last year. I just had a shoulder and elbow injury. That's why my play went down the toilet. Makes sense. And then he met with Arthur Blank and asked to go to a different team where he can start. And Blank said he took 5 pages of notes. Still can't get past that. I've never taken 5 pages of notes once in my life. I think if I had to take a class, I think if I was in prison and someone gave me a lecture on how to break out of prison, I don't think I'd come up with 5 pages of notes even in that situation. So for Cousins to say what he said back in February about the shoulder and elbow injury, and then to ask Arthur Blank to go somewhere else, all signs are pointing from 18. He does not want to be on the Falcons roster. And I don't like the idea of keeping hostages on your roster. But if he really does want to be there, and if he's going to be a good backup, you can't ask for a better backup, right, in a vacuum. That to me is a bit of a fantasy land. I don't think it's realistic that Kirk's like, yeah, I'm ready to be a backup. No, you weren't a few months ago. Did things really change? Maybe people change that quickly. I don't know. But Raheem Morris was probably like shell-shocked when Kirk walked in. It was just 21 days ago. He said, I don't think he'll be there. If he is, we'll welcome him with open arms. But I'm not going to be a fool enough to get myself worked up and angry about Kirk Cousins missing voluntary workouts. So I'm not the only one that's surprised right now that Cousins is showing up. Again, I don't know to what extent he showed up for. He might have just wanted to go and get some stuff from his locker. I don't know if he was active in whatever, workouts they were doing, whatever it could be. Whether that was just, hey, we're going to get a lift in and we're going to do, I won't even pretend to know what goes on at these voluntary workouts. They're, so closed off and everything like that. Media is not granted access to it, but it just seems, surprising to say the least. Now, Adam Schefter, like I said earlier this week, said publicly the Falcons have said they are not interested in trading quarterback Kirk Cousins. But privately, they've had discussions with teams and have asked for a lot in return. Atlanta has asked for any acquiring team to pay $20 million of the $45 million worth of guarantees left on Cousins' contract, and no one's been willing to do that. But with Kirk Cousins showing up to voluntary workouts, this helps Atlanta in that leveraging situation where they go to the other team and say, we don't have to trade Kirk because he's showing up to voluntary things. So if you were under the impression that we had to trade Kirk because he would be a no-show all year, you are mistaken. So we want a third, we want a fourth. Whatever it is, the price just got either went up or it just became more attainable for Atlanta to secure whatever that asking price is. But the big question that I have, that you probably have right now is, does Kirk really want to back up Michael Penix? In a vacuum, in a perfect world, in fantasy land, sure, this is good for everyone. You're already paying him. Penix has injury history. So if he were to go down, I think we'd all feel very comfortable with Kirk Cousins stepping in for a couple of games. At least more comfortable with Kirk than Emory Jones or Easton Stick. But I feel that we are forgetting the human element here. And that is, when you've got 53 players in a locker room working towards winning a Super Bowl, everyone's got a job. Whether you're the starter or you're the backup who's there to prepare the starter, everyone's got a role. And when the backup doesn't want to be there, I don't think that's a good situation. And when Kirk says, I want to go somewhere else, and has a meeting with Arthur Blank about that, I don't know how much more clear it could be. So, I got a pretzel in my head, right? This is Talladega Nights. I got a soft serve pretzel in my head, Ricky. So, do you want Kirk to remain the backup? Give me a yes or give me a no. If Kirk told me, hey, I slept on it and I have accepted that my time as a starter in this league is over, and I'm thrilled to back up Michael and make sure he is prepared every single Sunday, then yeah, why not, right? I don't think that's realistic. But if that were to be the case, okay, I'm in. Next up on the show, I want to talk about Atlanta trading out of pick 15 because on top of the Kirk Cousins news, they got some other good news as well when it comes to acquiring more draft capital, which Schefter and everyone else says the Falcons want to do. So we're going to look at some of that coming up in just a moment here. But I do want to give a quick shout out here to our friends over at Prize Picks. You see, Prize Picks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Turn your playoff hot takes into tickets to basketball's championship series. Starting with the play-in round, and now we're past that, to every lineup you make on Prize Picks will enter you in the Take-Two ticket sweepstakes, which could get you at a +1 a VIP trip to the ship. But if you're more of a baseball guy, all you got to do is just take the more or less. Right now, they're putting Austin Riley's hits at 0.5. I'll take the more there. Same goes for Matt Olson, and we'll take the less on the enemy, Nolan Arenado. So, get started with Prize Picks today. I put a lot of this information for you all in the comments and description of today's episode. It's a great way to have a little bit more engagement with some of the playoff games you're watching. I was up till 12:30 last night watching the Stars and the Avalanche in overtime, just watching YouTube TV on my phone, no free ads, but it's a great way to have some rooting interest in some of those events. So download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. So I want to talk about Atlanta potentially trading out of pick 15. This has been, widely discussed. I'm not breaking anything right now. The Falcons are definitely interested in moving back from that first round spot and acquiring more draft capital. Because the way I look at it, they've got 3 picks in the draft. I don't give a shit about these picks right here. 7th rounders, no. I know, yes, but really no. So if the Falcons can find a way to get back in day 2 another time or two, I'm sure Terry Fontenot would pounce at that. And here's where Atlanta could enter the mix as a solution to another team's problem. You see, Albert Breer had a great article today with things he's hearing going into the draft. And part of it jumped out to me as a connect the dots style thing. He wrote, "We have another team that has at least started sniffing around on a trade-up, and that's the Houston Texans. It's no secret that Houston needs offensive line help, and I'd expect the Texans to target strong character players as they continue to remake that room. The Texans have 2 teams in front of them, the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, that could take an offensive lineman. This is ideal for Atlanta if they can sell Houston on fear. You want to keep CJ Stroud healthy? You go get the 3rd best offensive lineman in this class, because you're not going to jump from 25 into the top 10. That's probably too rich. So you're probably out of the reach of Will Campbell from LSU or Armand Membu out of Mizzou. But if you want to make sure you get the next best tackle, because it's not a very deep tackle class, and you want to get offensive tackle number 3 and not offensive lineman number 6 or number 7, we can help with that problem, right? We can help you move up in this draft and secure the guy that's going to make sure CJ Stroud plays every single game and doesn't get injured. And so I could see Atlanta being very receptive, borderline engaging in a trade conversation with Houston where they offer up pick 15 and go, give us your first. In exchange for moving back 10 spots, we noticed that you have an extra 3rd round pick since the Laramie Tunsil trade. So you wouldn't mind losing one of your day 2 picks. And this gives the Falcons a second round draft pick, bringing their day 2 pick total up to 2. So back to even Stevens. And now you go from having just 3 useful picks up to 4, which is still not where you would like to be, but it's better than where you currently are at right now. So watch for the Falcons to maybe make a move with the Texans specifically. And if you're Atlanta, I think you'd be very on board with the possibility of getting an extra pick and at the same time not seeing a big drop-off in the player you get at 15 versus the player you get at 25. I could see Mykel Williams being there at 25. I know a lot of you watching right now would take him at 15. Same goes for James Pierce. I think a lot of you would be okay if that was the pick at 15. I don't think anyone's TVs would get broken, right? Or what about the Boston College defensive end, Donovan Ezeroku, who had 16 and a half sacks last year? These are some, good pass rushers, some good round 1 guys that you're getting at 25 that you probably would be okay with taking at 15, because the difference between the player you get at 15 and the player you get at 25 is, in this year's draft, marginal. So I like the idea of the Falcons trying to get back into the second day of the draft. I mean, let's just take a look at some of their stats here, and you can see the highs and lows for these players. Ezeroku, 16 and a half sacks last year, 60 pressures. He was not a big-time recruit. He's not a big guy. I got concerns whether or not he can play all 3 downs or if he's just a pass rush specialist. But, when he is rushing the passer, he put up terrific production last year for the Eagles. But the reason why I'm, really gung-ho about this is I want to just propose a mock scenario for a second here. Like, if Atlanta were to do this, ask yourself this. Which side of the screen do you like more? The left side, which involves no trade back, and let's say get Mike Green at 15, and then Trey Amos, the Ole Miss corner, at 46, and then no third round pick. Or do you like the right side more, where you get Mykel Williams in round 1, also Trey Amos just to keep it consistent, but toss in Alfred Collins at the end of round 2 to try and replace Grady Jarrett, and then next year replace Onyemata? Personally, I'm leaning towards the right side of the screen more. I like Mike Green, but I don't know if Mike Green is just, leaps and bounds ahead of Williams, where he outweighs the possibility of getting a second round pick. Plus, what I don't have on screen there is the flexibility that you gain by adding an extra second round pick. Because if you move back and you get that pick 58 from Houston, well, now when you get to round 2, you don't feel maybe as obligated to go with a corner or a safety, right? Whatever the next position could be, an offensive tackle, because you have an extra day 2 pick. So if you're like, damn, we like both these edge rushers a lot, but we can't go back-to-back edge. We've got to water our other plants. With an extra second round pick, you can water your other plants. You can go edge with your first 2 picks and still get a corner. Whereas earlier, you felt maybe compelled to go corner in round 2 because that would be your last opportunity to get a good corner up until round 4. There's a lot more flexibility offered with this trade idea right here. So if Houston doesn't want to mess around and they want to get their guy, give Atlanta a call. I'm typing Y for yes. I'm moving back 10 spots. I'm getting back into day 2 of the draft again with a second round pick. And even then, you could trade back from like 46 and get back into round 3 a little bit, right? Although that might be too big of a snowball. So I'm doing a Y for yes. All right. That is it for today's episode. You know that we've been pumping videos out, once, twice a day leading up to the draft. So don't miss a single thing when you're subscribed to the channel. If you're still watching, drop an emoji in the chat. I always like to see who watches all the way to the end of the video, so this would be our little secret.